joined now from Westminster by Richard Burgon. He's a prominent ally of Jeremy Corbyn and today was appointed as the Shadow Lord Chancellor. A very good evening to you.
Good evening. How are you?
Did you ever dream when you were elected a year ago, quite a young age, that you would be like Shadow Lord Chancellor by now?
Well, I've never dreamed much in politics about getting this position or that position. I just want to do the best I can for the people and communities that Labour exists to represent, so I haven't really given it much thought, the idea of promotion or anything like that.
Right, well, you'd be fast, rapid promotion. Look, is it possible that this thing can work with Jeremy Corbyn clearly not having the support of the parliamentary party? How does this work?
Well, what I would start off by saying is I'm deeply, deeply disappointed, as Labour members and Labour voters across the country are, that when the Conservative government is in trouble up to its neck, when we've got a situation of increased economic and political uncertainty due to the decision to leave the EU, that rather than turning the fire on the Conservative government, instead some Labour MPs have chosen to manufacture an attempted leadership coup and put on the front page of the newspaper not the trouble that Conservatives are in, not the damage that the Conservatives are doing to people and communities around the better of the country, but have put rows within the internal parliamentary Labour Party on the front page news. I think that's very, very disappointing. I think it's letting the Conservatives off the hook, to be frank.
What do you think Jeremy Corbyn would do if he was a backbench MP and he didn't agree with the leadership of his party? Do you think he would be restrained in what he says or how he votes or what he does?
Well, there's a difference between principled opposition on this policy or that policy to an outright attempt to capsize the whole ship. I can tell you this now for a fact. If Liz Kendall had been elected as leader of the Labour Party, if Andy Burnham had been elected as leader of the Labour Party, if Yvette Cooper had been elected as leader of the Labour Party, I wouldn't have been, and my members and people who voted for me wouldn't expect me to be engaging in an attempt to capsize the whole ship. I just think it's wrong. I think it's a distraction. I think it's letting the Conservatives off the hook, to be frank.
Do you think the party can survive? We just heard Nick Watt explaining to us that he's been speaking to people who say this party will split. Do you think it can survive in this current form with basically internal war going on?
Well, what the Labour Party or the Labour MPs and my colleagues need to understand is there is no future for Labour as a vehicle to connect with ordinary working people and change the lives of working people length and breadth of the country if we return to the politics of what is considered by so many to be the establishment. There's no future for Labour if we return to the political and economic status quo, which saw Labour lose the trust of people in Britain despite all the good work we did in Parliament. This really is about what is the Labour Party about. I think a lesson of the European Union referendum was that people out there are angry at the political and economic establishment. If people think the way forward for Labour is to return to being perceived as a party of the political and economic establishment, and I think they're sadly mistaken, and it would be politically and electorally disastrous.
Aren't you basically just saying to people who have fundamental and profound disagreements with the direction of the party, you're basically saying it's disloyal, you just have to agree with us and go along with us and you can't question it? And Jeremy Corbyn would never have done that. He never did do that. He defied the whip about 428 times. These people have their consciences just as you have your conscience, and there's no reason why they should have to support someone who they just don't support.
The truth is that Jeremy Corbyn was elected with an overwhelming majority, the biggest mandate that any political leader in British history has been elected upon. He's only been in position for 9 months. We've had 4 victories in parliamentary by-elections. We've had where in 3 of which we increased the Labour share of the vote. We won 4 mayoral elections. And the truth is, on the European Union referendum, Jeremy Corbyn's position of saying that the European Union isn't perfect, it's not ideal, but on balance we should stay in and change it in favour of ordinary people and make it more democratic, that resonated more with the electorate than the views of some of those criticising him, who thought the way forward in working class communities in the north and elsewhere was to kid people on that the European Union is perfect. Nobody believed it.
I mean, look, you basically have to admit Jeremy Corbyn is a radical, more than the British mainstream. To make it work from that radical position in a general election, and we may be having one soon, you would have to be supremely confident and supremely united around the position that you're taking. And that's just not the impression your party is giving now. Do you really think you could win a general election before the end of this year with the shadow cabinet having deserted the leader and with Jeremy Corbyn still in place?
Well, a new shadow cabinet is in place, and when you talk about Jeremy Corbyn being radical, I don't think there's anything radical about proposing a £10 an hour minimum wage. I don't think there's anything radical about proposing a massive building programme of council houses. I don't think there's anything radical, by the way, in thinking that Britain made a huge mistake in getting involved in the Iraq war. We can win the next general election, but if we don't win the next general election, then I think that some people do need to ask themselves this question: did it help Labour or did it harm Labour? Did it help Labour or harm the people that Labour seeks to represent? Manufacturing a leadership row, letting the Tories off the hook, and basically making the news story divisions in the Parliamentary Labour Party, not the mess that this Conservative government is making of this country.
Just a simple one, really. If he does lose a motion of no confidence in the Parliamentary Party, does he step down and try and go to another contest? What actually happens at that point?
Well, first of all, I'd say we shouldn't have a leadership contest. People shouldn't be seeking a leadership contest. There's more important things to do. We should be focusing our fire on the Conservatives. But if Labour MPs go through with it and vote no confidence in Jeremy Corbyn tomorrow, then I think they've got to understand that in order to remove Jeremy Corbyn, the duly elected Labour leader just 9 months ago with a huge mandate, they're going to have to take part in a democratic process. And all the candidates who stood for Labour, the Labour leader at the last leadership election, said quite rightly that they wanted to empower members. We shouldn't be seeking to silence members or disrespect the democratic choice that they made.
But you're implying that he can limp on.
I'm not implying anything about limping. If Jeremy Corbyn has to stand in a leadership election and he is prepared to do so, then there's a very good chance of Jeremy Corbyn being re-elected as leader of the Labour Party. And if he is, what MPs should do then is what they should be doing now, which is ending the infighting, ending the inward-looking behaviour and focusing on the real enemy, the Conservative government that's doing so much harm to people and public services in this country.
Richard Burgon, thanks ever so much, and sorry about that annoying earpiece. I know what they're like.
No problem. Thank you.